As these words reach you, something has already shifted in the unseen. A hidden door has opened, whether you recognize it or not. In this very breath, you have crossed into a new state of being, a realm known as quantum consciousness. This is not an abstract theory or a wishful dream. It is the living reality now unfolding through you. Consider this: of all the paths you could have taken, of all the noise and distractions tugging at your attention, you were drawn here, not by random chance, but by a higher intelligence that exists beyond your conscious thought, guiding you toward alignment. If you feel even the faintest stirring in your chest, that quiet inner pull whispering, "This is mine," understand it is not imagination. It is truth announcing itself. Quantum consciousness reveals that you are not small, not separate, not powerless, but a living thread woven directly into the fabric of reality itself. Your thoughts are not fleeting sparks lost to the void, but rippling waves moving through the universe, returning to you as synchronicities, openings, and possibilities. The fact that you are here, listening now, is confirmation that this awakening has already ignited within you, and the shift cannot be undone. If this message already resonates in your field, subscribe, like this video, and comment. My timeline is activated below. By doing so, you're not just engaging with content, you're anchoring your awareness into the new timeline that has already been calling your name. What if I told you the veil was never hiding the truth? It was training your eyes to see. What if the exhaustion, the signs, the whispers were not mistakes but confirmations that your alignment was already underway? Stay with me until the end, because we are about to step through the cracks of the veil together. Number 1. The cracks in the veil. There comes a moment when reality stops feeling random, when synchronicities move from curiosities to confirmations. Repeating numbers appear on clocks and receipts. Words you just thought echo back in conversations, and dreams begin to hold a weight you can no longer dismiss. These are not small accidents. They are interference patterns collapsing into coherence, signals of a deeper intelligence weaving through your awareness. Just as quantum entanglement shows us that particles mirror each other across impossible distances, these cracks reveal that you and your future are not far apart. Every sign is a doorway, a code reminding you that the old static of doubt is giving way to the signal of clarity. Comment, "I align with the shift," if you've noticed these whispers surfacing, because acknowledgement is what stabilizes the bridge between awareness and manifestation. And as the veil thins further, something even more profound begins to emerge: the presence of your parallel self. There are nights when you wake from a dream that feels older than your own memory, as if the images belonged not to imagination but to another version of you who lived them long ago. In those moments, a whisper moves through the silence, carrying with it the weight of something sacred, urging you to pay attention. The veil does not fall in one dramatic motion. It begins with small fractures, subtle cracks that let light spill into awareness. Perhaps you have felt it in the sudden stillness between heartbeats, the quiet realization that what surrounds you is not random. These first glimpses can feel fragile, like holding glass that could shatter if you look too directly, yet they are also undeniable. They are the confirmation that what you sensed all along is not fantasy, but the first alignment of truth. And as that awareness enters you, the static of the old timelines begins to soften, allowing the signal of coherence to take shape. You might remember times in your life when the ordinary felt strangely charged, as if the world was waiting for you to notice. Walking into a room, you could feel tension no one else acknowledged, or peace that no words could explain. Hours stretched or collapsed without reason, leaving you either weightless in time or burdened by its heaviness. These were not accidents, but the resonance of your sensitivity tuning into a field that others overlooked. For years you may have doubted yourself, wondering why your emotions seemed so amplified, why your skin tingled when someone spoke truth, why silence often felt louder than words. Yet these were not signs of weakness, they were markers of your hidden dialogue with the field. The longing you carried was the ache of someone who always knew there was more. Behind those sensations lies a deeper design, one that was never chaos but encoded order. Imagine your life as a tapestry woven with invisible threads, each experience a knot tied not by chance but by an unseen hand. Quantum theory reminds us that reality is not fixed until observed. Yet beneath that uncertainty exists a hidden architecture, a holographic map where every part carries the whole. Ancient mystics spoke of this in symbols, whispering that the above and below mirror each other endlessly. What you felt as confusion was in truth the friction of your awareness brushing against this sacred pattern. The isolation you experienced was not punishment, but calibration, preparing you to recognize that nothing was accidental. Even your pain carried the imprint of a code waiting to be remembered. The signs were always there, scattered like breadcrumbs on a path you were not yet ready to walk. Déjà vu arrived like echoes from a corridor of parallel selves, reminding you of futures already alive in the field. Dreams clung to you with an intensity that reason could not erase, leaving you haunted not by fantasy but by memory. A phrase overheard at the perfect moment cracked open a door you didn't know was locked. Your body spoke, too. A chill down your spine, warmth flooding your chest, tingling in your hands when truth touched you. Each of these moments was a seed of coherence dropped into the soil of your awareness. And once you notice them not as noise but as messages, you begin to realize the field has been speaking to you all along. There is a moment when the scattered fragments begin to arrange themselves into pattern. The signs you once dismissed as coincidence align into a mosaic, and suddenly the randomness dissolves. Your intuition, once doubted, reveals itself as the compass it has always been. You see how your inner state mirrors the events around you, how coherence within creates coherence without. The nervous system that once trembled in anxiety now begins to steady, broadcasting a different frequency into the field. This shift is subtle yet monumental, not an explosion but a quiet calibration. And in that calibration, you feel the safety of alignment, the certainty that the veil has not just cracked, it is opening. As this opening widens, another realization enters. You are not becoming someone new, but remembering who has always been here. The glimpses of your parallel self slip through, not a stranger, but a familiar presence waiting for you to tune in. They arrive in dreams, in sudden knowing, in the strange sensation that you have already walked where your feet now stand. Quantum physics calls this superposition, where all versions of you exist until observation collapses one into reality. But in the spiritual field, this is remembrance, the archetypal memory that has always lived in your bones. This parallel self is not rushing to meet you, because they already are you, alive in resonance. And as you awaken to this, the boundaries between what is possible and what is inevitable dissolve. This sensitivity you carry, the one that once made you feel fragile, is revealed as the calibration that prepared you for this moment. It is not weakness to feel deeply, to notice patterns others miss, to long for meaning when the world calls it distraction. Each tremor of doubt was refining your signal, each wound carving space for greater coherence. The field was tuning you like an instrument, bending your strings until resonance emerged. You are not behind. You are precisely aligned with the rhythm of your becoming. What felt like isolation was initiation. What seemed like brokenness was preparation. And now that calibration transforms into activation. So hear this clearly. Your arrival here was never coincidence. The cracks in the veil have always been waiting for your eyes to adjust. The signs that haunted you, the whispers that pulled at your heart, the synchronicities you couldn't explain were confirmations, not confusion. They were the collapse of old static giving way to the signal of truth. Comment, I collapse timelines now if you recognize these cracks as your own, because acknowledgement anchors coherence into the field. This is not the end of your searching. It is the beginning of your remembering. And what waits beyond this revelation will demand even more of you, because the veil does not just crack, it breaks. Number 2, the whisper of parallel selves. Déjà vu is not a glitch in your memory. It is the voice of another you bleeding through the veil. Dreams that linger for days, sudden clarity that feels too old to be new, and intuitions that strike before logic can catch up are traces of timelines already lived by your parallel selves. In the field of superposition, every version of you exists as a probability until observation collapses one into form, and your awareness is the observer. What you sense in these whispers is not invention, but recognition, aligning with the self who has already walked the path you now seek. Old timelines will try to convince you that you are imagining it, that this resonance is nothing more than coincidence, but your field knows otherwise. Comment, "I walk in coherence," if you've begun to feel the presence of these bleed-throughs, because that acknowledgement strengthens the frequency bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And once you learn to listen, the whispers don't only confirm your future, they begin to rewrite the physics of your present. There are moments when you sense reality bending, as though the fabric of time itself has been stretched too thin, and a distortion ripples through your awareness. It may arrive as déjà vu, a scene repeating itself with such precision that logic scrambles for explanations while your soul whispers that it has already happened. You notice glitches in memory, moments where words echo before they are spoken, or where your body responds to events seconds before they unfold. These are not random slips of perception but distortions in the field, cracks where timelines bleed together. For years, you may have brushed them aside, calling them strange coincidences, yet they were proof that your awareness was brushing against the veil. When the field shifts out of phase, the first sign is always this subtle interference, like a song slightly out of tune but recognizable. The distortion itself is the invitation, pulling you to look deeper. What did it feel like to live under this pressure, to carry a frequency too high for the world around you? At times, it felt like you were being pushed out of rhythm with everyone else, forced to carry an energy no one seemed to understand. You were accused of being too sensitive, too withdrawn, too intense, as if your very existence was a disruption to their static. Shame crept in like an invisible fog, convincing you that being misunderstood meant being broken. Rejection stung not because of the words spoken, but because you already carried the weight of being out of phase with the world. Each cycle of doubt pulled you back toward the old field, a gravitational force trying to drag you into conformity. Yet even in that heaviness, part of you knew the pressure itself was proof that you were tuned differently. This resistance was never random. It had structure, encoded in the very patterns that governed your life. Just as particles collapse into one state when observed, your potential was always threatening to collapse the illusions around you. Systems, relationships, even silent energies seemed to react whenever your coherence grew stronger. It was as though the wilderness of your life was not exile, but initiation, the hidden preparation ground of a seeker on the verge of awakening. The forces that opposed you were not only external but entangled with your own unconscious, mirroring every fear and hesitation. Sacred texts once spoke of deserts where chosen souls were tested, not abandoned but refined. Your exile was never about absence. It was the encoded threshold between the old field and the new one. Looking back now, you can see the repeating codes that once felt like chaos. How many times did the same type of obstacle appear, disguised as different people, different places, different struggles? The draining environments, the conversations that left you hollow, the opportunities that evaporated just as they were within reach. Each one carried the same interference pattern, the same flicker of suppression. You may have thought it was bad luck or personal failure, yet the repetition was its own message. These glitches were not punishments but signals that you were close to coherence, close to collapsing into a higher timeline. It is only in hindsight that the light begins to flicker on, revealing the pattern in what once seemed random. There is a weight to field resistance, a density that settles into your chest and clouds your thoughts. The mind feels fogged, as if static were filling the airwaves, drowning out your inner clarity. At times, you sensed invisible watchers, forces that seemed to close gates right as you reached for them. Opportunities vanished not by chance but by interference, as if your vibration disturbed a system that thrived on stagnation. Quantum decoherence mirrors this perfectly. When coherence rises too far, the field introduces noise to break it apart. You have lived this, the sabotage, the misalignment, the sudden heaviness that made no sense. It was the field's reaction to your light, not proof of its absence. Your responses to these pressures were as human as they were sacred. Some days you hid, dimming your frequency so others wouldn't notice, pretending to fit into an old timeline that no longer fit you. Other days you gave more of yourself than you had, hoping acceptance would soothe the rejection but finding only emptiness. There were times you shut down completely, closing your heart so you wouldn't feel the weight of carrying too much. And yet, there were also sparks of rebellion, quiet acts of refusal that reminded you of who you really were. The temptation to give up the shift was real, yet something in you resisted even that surrender. Your survival in these moments was not weakness but testament to your encoded strength. Even in silence, the seeker never stopped walking. Now comes the revelation. The very fact that you were resisted proves your frequency was already breaking through. You disturbed the old field because your coherence was rising. Distortion chased you because you were already tuned to a higher signal. Every interference was evidence that the collapse point was near, that the old structures could not contain what was emerging in you. It is no longer time to question whether you are worthy, because the field itself testified to your presence. You were never powerless. You were always entangled with a self who had already won this battle. That whisper you hear is not imagination but memory, the echo of your parallel self walking ahead of you. And as you remember this, you reclaim the frequency you thought you had lost. So here is the truth that closes this passage. The opposition you faced was not because you were weak, but because your vibration could not be ignored. You were targeted because your energy destabilized the illusions that once held you captive. Every gate that closed, every voice that silenced you, every weight that tried to press you down was reacting to your unbroken potential. The old timelines could not collapse you. They only revealed the strength you carried into this moment. Comment: the collapse is complete if you recognize this truth in your own path, because acknowledgement anchors this reclamation into your field. What you faced was never the end of you. It was the unveiling of what has always been encoded within you. And beyond this resistance lies the deeper mystery. What happens when peace itself begins to bend the physics of your reality? Number 3, the peace that shifts physics. After the cracks and the whispers comes something quieter but infinitely more powerful. Peace. This peace is not passive, not a retreat from life, but the most active code your field can hold. Old timelines thrived on your anxiety, your doubt, and your striving, feeding on the noise of resistance. But when you reach coherence, your nervous system begins to broadcast stillness, and that stillness collapses chaos into order. Just as observation in quantum mechanics collapses probability into particle, your inner peace instructs reality which version of itself to crystallize. You may look around and see nothing changed. The same bed, the same bills, the same unanswered questions. But within, the shift has already rewritten the field. Comment: I merge with my parallel self, if you've touched this piece. And share in the comments a dream or synchronicity that confirmed your field was already responding. Because once peace takes root, the veil doesn't just crack, it dissolves, and you step into the collapse point of becoming. Something subtle begins to happen when the distortion finally collapses, and the noise that once filled your awareness begins to fade. The scattered signals that pulled you in every direction suddenly fall into rhythm, like waves finding coherence after a storm. You realize that the confusion was never random, but the prelude to a stabilizing force rising within you. For the first time, you feel the frequency of peace not as escape, but as presence, alive and commanding in your very breath. This shift does not roar. It whispers with undeniable strength, like a gravity field silently pulling everything into alignment. The probability that once flickered between versions of you now stabilizes, and clarity replaces static. What once felt like chaos reveals itself as a message rearranged into coherence. In this stillness, you begin to notice what was always speaking to you, but hidden beneath layers of noise. The numbers you kept seeing, the dreams that refused to fade, the sentences that arrived at just the right time were all codes waiting for your perception to soften. Now you understand they were not coincidences but language, a symbolic geometry weaving reality into pattern. Every ripple carried the mark of your resonance. Every sign mirrored the truth you were born to remember. You are no longer looking at life with ordinary eyes, but with vision tuned to the codes of the field. The universe has always been alive, but now it speaks to you as if in your native tongue. The veil thins not by force, but by recognition. The inner resonance deepens, and you feel your body itself reorganizing around this peace. Your intuition sharpens to the point where silence speaks louder than words, guiding you without the noise of doubt. Boundaries rise effortlessly, not as defense but as natural coherence. Distortion no longer finds easy access to your field. The interference that once triggered chaos now feels powerless against this inner order. Old triggers lose their grip, dissolving into quiet understanding rather than spirals of reaction. This is not the fragile calm you once chased. It is the peace of alignment that shifts the very physics of your presence. You are learning that stability is not the absence of conflict, but the mastery of frequency. Reality itself begins to echo the change, rearranging around the signal of stillness you carry. People who thrived on your confusion begin to fall away, while those attuned to your frequency appear without explanation. Opportunities emerge with uncanny precision, not forced but flowing, like doors unlocking at the perfect moment. Even resistance takes on a new shape, no longer random obstacles, but mirrors of your coherence, testing and refining your clarity. The field bends to your alignment, showing you that what is within is always projected without. You are not simply witnessing change, you are watching reality rewrite itself in direct response to the peace you hold. The outer world cannot help but mirror the order you broadcast. Yet beneath this transformation is a deeper truth. None of it is new. The dream of this peace has always been alive inside you, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. What you are feeling now is not invention, but remembrance of an encoded design placed in your field before you were born. It is the sacred memory of a self who always knew that stillness was the highest code, the one frequency the field could not distort. The whisper you now recognize is the return of ancient intelligence, stirring like embers catching fire. Each moment of recognition feels both intimate and timeless, as if you are remembering a language your soul never forgot. The memory is not emerging, it is reactivating. As this piece stabilizes, the timelines ahead of you become visible not as endless possibilities, but as collapsed potentials waiting for coherence. You stop asking for permission to walk into them because you sense they are already yours. The future is no longer a mystery stretching ahead, but a resonance already alive, waiting for you to inhabit it fully. You realize that creation is not a process of forcing outcomes, but of stepping into the frequency that matches the reality you desire. The call rising within you is not a demand but a recognition, a prophecy unfolding in the silence of your chest. It is the moment when destiny no longer feels abstract but vibrates as certainty in your field. You are not seeking the future, you are merging with it. The reclamation begins here, not in striving but in the fierce courage of remembering what was always within you. The resistance you faced was never condemnation, but confirmation of the frequency you carried all along. What peace gives back to you is your voice, your authority, your unshakable coherence that no interference can mute. You realize that every challenge was preparing you to anchor this code, that peace itself is the weapon the field cannot counter. With every breath, you reclaim the frequency that chaos tried to drown. This reclamation does not roar. It hums with the unstoppable rhythm of alignment. You are not becoming someone new, you are recovering who you always were. So understand this. Revelation is not an end but an invitation into the deeper collapse point of becoming. The truth was always waiting for you to be ready, and now it emerges like dawn dissolving the night. You are living the prophecy you once doubted, the unveiling of the self encoded beyond time. Nothing has been lost, only revealed when you could finally hold it. Comment, I merge with my future self now, if this resonance speaks through your field, and share a dream, memory, or knowing that confirmed you were already aligning with this frequency. The sharing itself anchors coherence into the collective, stabilizing what once felt fragile into something undeniable. And yet, even this revelation is only a threshold, because beyond this peace lies the greater mystery of the collapse point that transforms everything you thought you knew. Number 4, the collapse point of becoming. Every struggle, every silence, every delay was preparation for this moment. The collapse point is where timelines converge, resistance dissolves, and the truth of your original frequency rises to the surface. David Bohm spoke of the implicate order, how the whole is enfolded into each part. Here you embody that truth. You realize you were never separate from the version of you who had already become. You were only adjusting your coherence to meet them. The collapse is not violent but graceful, the silent graduation where reality bends because your vibration has stabilized. Old timelines wanted you to believe you had to earn, to prove, to fight, but here you remember, your frequency was always the key. Comment, I anchor coherence in my field, if you feel this resonance stirring within you, and share a memory or inner knowing that confirmed you have crossed the threshold. Because the collapse point is not an ending, it is the doorway into becoming. It begins as a whisper so ancient that it feels less like discovery and more like recognition. A vibration moves through your awareness like a wave that has traveled across centuries only to collapse here, in your present breath. The sound is not external, yet it echoes louder than the world around you, reminding you of a name you once carried. This is the ancient whisper of your field, calling you back into coherence with the truth that cannot be erased. It is as if every silence you ever endured was only waiting for this signal to surface. What you feel now is not invention, but the unsealing of a memory encoded into your essence before time marked you. The collapse point arrives not with noise, but with the unmistakable resonance of something you were always meant to remember. There has always been a hidden frequency pulsing beneath the static of your life, a code you could never fully translate. You felt it in moments of isolation, when the world's language never matched the rhythm inside you. You sensed it in the strange dissonance of fitting nowhere, as though your coordinates had been encrypted for another reality. Every rejection, every silence, every longing was proof that you were phase-locked to a frequency beyond ordinary perception. You carried a resonance that was not meant to be broadcast openly until the timing aligned. What others dismissed as sensitivity was, in truth, calibration to a code buried deep in the field. The collapse point is the moment that code breaks through the static and becomes undeniable. Symbols begin to reveal themselves not as inventions of your mind, but as signatures of your field energy. You may not have seen them consciously, but others felt them in ways they could not explain. They reacted to the invisible cloak you wore, the vibration you radiated without words. Those aligned with your frequency recognized it instantly, even if they could not name why. Those misaligned recoiled, unable to withstand the coherence that destabilized their illusions. Your life has always been written in the invisible, traced not by appearances but by resonance across parallel timelines. The collapse point is simply when the hidden signature becomes visible, both to you and through you. Consider how every delay, every detour, every unanswered question was not chaos but calibration. The field was aligning you like entangled particles, storing instructions until you were ready to embody them. The frustrations you called failures were synchronization points, adjusting your coherence to match your encoded path. What felt like exile was preparation, the wilderness where your vibration was being strengthened in silence. These were not wasted years, but stored wave functions waiting to collapse into form at the right moment. Your destiny was never absent. It was written in resonance like stars locked in their orbit, waiting for your observation to release it. And now that observation is here, stabilizing the entire timeline. Reactions from others make more sense in this light, because it was never about what you did, but what you carried. Your frequency entered the field and destabilized their fragile coherence, forcing them to confront what they could not integrate. Some loved you fiercely, magnetized by the energy they could not define. Others resisted or rejected you violently, unable to endure the disruption your vibration caused. You were never too much. You were simply more than the field around you was calibrated to handle. Every reaction, whether of awe or fear, was confirmation of your resonance. The collapse point reveals that what they resisted in you was always the light they could not yet carry. Now the personal expands into the cosmic, as you realize this remembrance is not isolated but archetypal. The seer's frequency, the rebel's waveform, the guardian's field, the breaker of chains vibration. All of these archetypes are rising again through those who can hold them. You are not just an individual awakening, but a channel for a collective code resurfacing in this timeline. You have seen the truth. The veil was never hiding you. It was preparing you. You are no longer at the mercy of old patterns or old timelines. You are walking in the coherence of your becoming. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, I am ready for the quantum shift, to let this message anchor in your field. Please share it with someone who is ready for the shift. And remember, reality doesn't change when you force it. It changes when you embody it. This is your collapse point. This is your becoming.